This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
One final time for 25-26. Welcome to a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Winnipeg Jets in action tonight in game number 82. Not going to the playoffs, taking on the San Jose Sharks. It's fan appreciation night. Should be a fun night in the building, but unfortunately, the final time will be down at Canada Life Centre this year. As Winnipeg Jet fans, welcome to the program, gang. We got a big one today. We'll have the latest here from Scott Arneal and more on the Jets lineup and how things are shaking up tonight. What is at stake for the game, not necessarily for the playoffs, but for the draft lottery, as well as who's in, who's out, how the lineup looks, and a little more on the San Jose Sharks. And obviously a great chance to get a chance to an opportunity to see Macklin Celebrini, young Canadian star who really broke out at the Olympic Games, having a Hart Trophy-worthy season. Don't know whether he'll be a finalist for the award, but certainly will get plenty of votes and plenty of consideration. Murat has pretty, I would say scathing in a lot of ways, end-of-season report on the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to dive into that with Murat coming up on the program today. So lots of Jets content as we get ready for the final game of the season. Of course, we will not stop talking about the Jets and their plight, but we will turn our focus to the Stanley Cup playoffs starting next week on the program, as well as a look back at what went wrong for Winnipeg this season and how to avoid that happening in the future. A massive offseason for Winnipeg coming up, which will certainly dominate plenty of time on Winnipeg Sports Talk going forward. We do have UFC in town this weekend. Aaron Bronsteter, our pal, is in Winnipeg for the first time. Been here all week. He's going to let us know what to expect on Saturday night. Mike Murat, brother of former Jet and Moose Jeff Murat, fighting in the main event. So we'll have Aaron come on and tee us up. And before the end of the program, we're also going to check in with Erik Swar from the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. We have an amazing final set up for the MJ, which gets going tomorrow night. The Niverville Nighthawks, in their fourth season, playing for a championship. The Verdun Oil Kings in the finals. Again, they've been in the league since moving from Winnipeg as the Saints in 2012. Both teams have never won a championship before. So we're going to have a hell of a series, sold-out buildings. We'll tee that up and get the lay of the land in the MJ and set up the series with Erik Swar from the MJHL a little bit later on in the program today. But I did mention we've got the fight night at Canada Life Centre on the weekend. Today is the day. If you haven't already done it, and you're playing over at CoolBet, screen cap any of your wagers and send them in to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. For every $10 you wager, you'll get a ballot in a draw for a pair of tickets, courtesy of CoolBet, to see the fights on Saturday downtown. We will be giving those away tomorrow on the show. So if you're thinking about making a bet on the playoffs, you got a cup bet, you're betting the game tonight, do that. Send it to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com and tune in tomorrow to find out who is the winner. We will have some opportunities to maybe place a wager or two at CoolBet for tonight's game, because Kyle Connor is one goal away from 40 on the season. He's plus 135. I can tell you that I've already locked in a KFC goal. I think he's going to be shooting the puck quite a bit as well. If you want to jump on that over 3.5 shots, don't mind that one. And we're going to combine those two with the Jet win for a little WST exclusive. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the program. But again, if you are a cool bettor, if you haven't played there before, give it a shot and use the promo code WST. You'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. But send those bet slips into contest at winnipegsportstalk.com to be eligible to win the tickets for fight night. There is something to be determined in this game, and that is who will be in the 7 hole when it comes to the draft lottery and who will be in the 8 spot. If the Winnipeg Jets win this game tonight in regulation, they will jump the Sharks in the standings, which means the Sharks will jump them in the draft lottery standings. The best case scenario, I think, for Jet fans that'll be at the game tonight would be a fun back and forth game. Kyle Connor gets his 40th goal, and the Jets win the game in overtime. So the Sharks would get a point to stay ahead of the Jets. It would not be a tie at the end of the season. We wouldn't have to go to regulation wins, of which the Jets have more of. They would stay in the 7 hole. The fans would get some OT, a Jet win to finish up the season, and everyone goes home happy. We'll talk about that with Remis right away. And Connor was down at the morning skate one last time. He'll join us as well before Murat joins us on the program. Do want to thank all the sponsors that make WST happen. Of course, our partners at CoolBet, Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports. We got a Chud's Power Sports. We got a couple good power polls. One about who's playing in the playoffs before the end of the week, and another on the end of the Jets season. And maybe we'll do a top 5 of positive things from the Jets. Maybe wins of the year. We'll do that tomorrow on the program. But of course, want to thank Manitoba Building Trades and the Manitoba Federation of Labor, Uptown Alley, Rolly's Transfer, St. Patel Dental Center. The Tri-Hospital Lottery just announced today. We'll get going promoting that tomorrow. But great to have them on board with us. Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Breezy Bend. Of course, the lines are up for Clean Line, plumbing, heating, and electrical. We'll touch on that right away, as well as Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, and of course, a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGilvery. Welcome to everybody in chat, all you podcast listeners, and welcome to you, Michael Remis. One more time, we got a game day show. What's up?
Yeah, finally this season, miserable, extremely disappointing Winnipeg Jets 2025-26 season, 15th anniversary season coming to an end tonight, and we'll get to unpack, discuss what went wrong, and have what should be a very exciting summer and off season. But final game tonight, the Jets, keeping the top line together, trying to put a show on for the fans, for fan appreciation. I'd hoping for a big game. And you mentioned, Huss, if they pick 7th, 6.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick. If you pick 8th, 6% chance. So only a 0.5% difference. Not a huge difference, but certainly you want to give yourself whatever chance you can to get that number 1 pick here.
To me, it's less about the 5% chance of getting 1 or 2, and it's about where you start.
Okay, because you could move down. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
because you don't want to get bumped.
I mean, and listen, different people have different opinions on the draft, but we have heard that there's sort of a core group of a top 7. I mean, Scott Wheeler came on, and in his opinion, it was more like about a top 12. But listen, it would be better to pick 7th than 8th. And there's always the chance that a team behind you gets their number called, at which point you bounce back. But the Jets are guaranteed a top 10 pick. Worst case scenario is they win this game tonight, they move back to 8th, and then teams behind them get both of the lottery balls and bump the Jets back to 10. But as of right now, they'll pick anywhere between 1 or 2 or 7, 8, 9, or 10. If this game goes to overtime, you can cross 10 off the list. They'll be in the 7 hole. If they win this game in regulation, they'll start in the 8 spot. And then we go to May 5th and see how the lottery balls roll out and where everything finishes up. But we don't have to worry about the Panthers anymore. How about that finish to their season, Reem? 8-1 embarrassment of the Detroit Red Wings last night. And I know we saw Bones go absolutely nuclear. I don't know if you caught Todd McClellan after the game. He was doing everything he could to not go into Bones mode and successfully did that. But he was absolutely steaming and had to just basically drop a couple of one-word answers to prevent him from losing it. And in a lot of ways, not that we spend a lot of time talking about Detroit, but that team was 4th overall in the league in the new year. I think they were 12 points up on a playoff spot, and they just simply went into free fall over the course of the month of March in particular, but really the last 7-8 months of the season, almost since the Olympic break. And man, what a thud to end their season, and somewhat appropriate. I'm very interested in what the offseason brings in Detroit, because it would have seemed crazy to ever mention that Steve Yzerman might be in trouble. I mean, he is the Red Wings legend, Mr. Detroit. But man, they have gone back to the well over and over and over again. And we've seen another late season swoon cost that team a spot in the playoffs. So you do wonder, I mean, I don't think he would be fired, but you could see him potentially moved up to, say, a president's role and bring in another day-to-day general manager. But the good thing for Jet fans was that by Florida winning that game, that's another team that will be slotted higher than the Winnipeg Jets once we get to the lottery. So we don't have to worry about St. Louis anymore. Don't have to worry about the Panthers anymore. The only team that could potentially skip the line ahead of the Jets going into the lottery would be San Jose. And honestly, thanks to the Blackhawks, it was 2-1 last night going into the third period, and all needed to happen was for that game to get to overtime. And we wouldn't even need to worry at all about the result of tonight's game. Just go out, win the game. Unfortunately, the Blackhawks erupted for, I think, 4 in the third period. So San Jose coming in on the second end of a back-to-back, playing last night in Chicago. They're going to probably be on fumes. And it certainly does sound like, the guys that are going to be out there, especially the younger players, which we'll hear Scott Arniel speak about in a minute, going to be looking forward to their first chance to play in the NHL in a full building in front of Winnipeg Jet fans tonight. And I would imagine the Jets will be doing everything they can to put their best foot forward, win this hockey game tonight, and get one Kyle Connor his 40th goal of the season now that Scheif's got his 100 and Gabe Vilardi's got his 30. It's the only milestone left to go.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, Huss. You did mention Rick Bowness and his outburst yesterday. He did, wasn't just announced before we started that Rick Bowness, that he has signed an extension with the Blue Jackets. So he is back. He will be changing the freaking culture there, or at least trying to. And yeah, Detroit, they were in a free fall, 2-6-2 in their last 10, falling, out of a playoff spot, 7 points behind Ottawa. Yzerman's been trying hard for a while to get them in there. Hasn't worked out. They traded a first for Justin Falk. That backfired. Signed some high-priced free agents that are not exactly the, elite tier of free agents. And one thing that's hurt them is they've been so bad, but they've never won the lottery. They haven't had that chance to pick a Schaefer or a Celebrini, who Philip Zadina was supposed to be their top guy, when they picked high years ago. That one did not work out. So I am curious if Yzerman is going to be the guy going forward. And for the Jets, it's Fan Appreciation Night. I think they want to put on a show for the fans. How nice would it be to see some more milestones hit? Kyle Connor, with his 40th goal. But, ultimately the team didn't, they're not going to be in the playoffs, and a big, big step back from last season, and a lot of questions about the club moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to really dive into those with Murat. But as you mentioned, I mean, the difference between picking 7th or 8th or in that slot when it comes to the actual lottery and getting the first or second pick, I mean, it's half a percentage point. If you think that it is that important to get into the top 7 to start, then maybe you're looking at the loss. I think best case scenario tonight, get this one to OT and win it in OT, maybe with the 40th goal by Kyle Connor, and send everybody home happy. Should be fun, though. If you're going to the game tonight, everyone's going to get a ticket when they come in. Everyone's winning something. They're giving stuff away all night. And we're going to see Braden Yeager play as a Jet for the first time here in Winnipeg. We're going to see more Nikita Chibrikov. Brad Lambert's going to be out there. Interesting to note, and I will give our buddy Ken Wiebe some credit. I asked him yesterday about Connor Hellebuyck, and he thought that Helly would be done for the season. Now, it's threw a few people off this morning when Hellebuyck was in the starter's net, but Eric Comrie was off first. Eric Comrie's going to get the start in the final game of the season.
Yeah, nice to see Erik Comrie, and will he get the contract for this season? I think that's a question we're asking ourselves when you look at the lineup for tonight. How many of these guys are going to be part of the solution for next season? But shout out to Ken. A bit of a fake out at the morning skate. It was Connor Hellebuyck in the starter's net. Everyone's like, oh, Hellebuck's starting. But no, Erik Comrie is getting the start here in the final regular season game. You want me to pull up the lines here and just go
one more time for the season. Our Clean Line projected lines for tonight's game, brought to you by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your one-stop shop for Winnipeg residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical services. Much like the captain, Adam Lowry, has your back. They've got yours as well. 24/7 emergency services available. Remember the number, 204-500-2001. And you can find them online at cleanline.ca. Connor Scheifele-Velarde, the top line. Looks like Niederreiter is going to be on the right side of Adam Lowry and Cole Perfetti. Brad Lambert and Isaac Rosane with Jonathan Taves. And Braden Yeager, for the first time as a Jet, takes to the ice in Winnipeg. Nikita Chibrikov and Cole Koepke on the wings tonight. Defense, Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello, Dylan Sandberg and Colin Miller, and Hayden Fleury and Ville Heinola tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. Eric Comrie and net. I'm going to talk to a little bit about Ville with Murat coming up. I believe he spoke with Ville today. I think it is safe to say, barring any very shocking turn of events, that this will be Ville Heinola's final game in the organization. I guess there's always a chance someone could come back later on, depending on what happens. Crazier things have happened right now, Remo, but he will be a Group 6 free agent, so he'll be unrestricted based on not playing enough games. Thought he looked pretty good. He was jumping into the play in Utah the other night, and he'll get an opportunity to put another game on his resume before seeing what else is out there, presumably on the 1st of July.
Yeah, when you're talking about players who are not going to be back with the Jets this season, if I had a power poll of that, Huss, I don't know if that's going to be your Chud Sports power poll later, but Ville Heinola, pretty confident in saying that he will not be a free agent for not playing enough games. Only 4 games with the Jets this season. He did play 44 with the Moose in the first half, called up due to injury. He was picked in the first round, 20th overall, back in 2019. It was the Jets' own pick that they traded to the Rangers for Kevin Hayes and then got back as part of the Jacob Trouba trade alongside Neil Pionkin. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's not super young anymore, but he's not, old either. And he's only a free agent because he hasn't played enough games. And that's kind of been the story for him the last couple of years, whether it's due to injury or being a healthy scratch. I feel like we don't entirely know what Ville has to offer in the NHL level. And the Jets weren't looking to try to find out. They didn't care enough to make sure that he would play the games to retain his rights. So you wish him all the best. Maybe he'll find room in another organization. He was placed on waivers this year and did clear. I think part of that, Huss, though, is if you did claim him, you would have to keep him at the NHL. There may be another team out there that would want to have him as a 8th defenseman in the AHL and maybe would be more willing to give opportunity for a call-up. You look at another defenseman who was at the Moose, Simon Lundmark. He signed with Tampa. He got some NHL games this year for the first time. So I'm curious what happens to Ville. Wish him all the best, but it ultimately did not work out for here. But I don't really know if he was given a ton of opportunity, but the little games he did play, he didn't exactly, move the needle. But only 57 NHL games here since being drafted 2019.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's people on both sides. Some people think that this guy's like a star in the making and was just done wrong by the Jets. Others that say that the guy is not good enough and too small to really be an effective, everyday defenseman in the National Hockey League. The truth's, I'm sure, probably somewhere in the middle. But I've always been a fan of his. Do I think that he's top four material? Well, probably not. But I have always thought that in the right situation, like he could be an everyday player, like maybe on a younger, bad team right now. But the bottom line is that they have made their decisions on Ville Heinola. I think we saw it during the stretch with him not playing very many games. I am happy, though, he gets one final game to be in the lineup tonight. He will be in on that third pairing tonight, and it would be very, very appropriate. Much like he kind of came in with some fanfare, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and has a really good game tonight and gives people something to think about on his way out the door. But that question we asked about, who will be around next year and who won't be is a really interesting one. I mean, Cole Koepke obviously is a pending UFA. I do think that they'll work to try to keep him in the mix. Certainly the RFAs, Rosine, Cole Perfetti. And then the big question is, with a guy like Braden Yeager, will he be able to crack the lineup, whether it be early next season or later on next year? Is that even in their plan? And obviously, unfortunately, we haven't seen any Elias Salmonson since he was injured earlier on this year, late in this stretch on that reverse hit, and has not returned back so much here. Let's hear a little bit of what Coach Arniel has to say. This is Arnie on the final game tonight, 82 at Canada Life Center.
Said it in Utah, and obviously, again today, just we got to play the games. It's you want to be at your best. You don't want to get embarrassed, and you want to go out and finish the job. I mean, it's a tough game to play. To do it for the fans. They've been obviously there for us, and it's not the outcome that we wanted. But at the end of the day, we got to play the game. So let's not go out and lay an egg. Let's go out and play as hard as we can.
Yeah, and they'll be doing that against San Jose, who comes in after a loss last night in Chicago. If we wanted to go through the entire exercise, Remo, of points left on the table over the course of this season, as painful as that would be, I could see us looking at the two losses to the San Jose Sharks this year. They had a 2-1 overtime loss in their last meeting. So they would like to get one. But as they say, best case scenario tonight, win this one in overtime with Kyle Connor's 40th. And they'll hold their spot where it comes to the draft lottery and send people home happy with the end result of the game. This is the final game of the season and the final opportunity for Brad Lambert to, I think, show that he should be part of this opening day roster next year. There'll be a big offseason coming up for he and many of the players that are going to try to get into the lineup next year. But Arnie was asked on what he's seen from Brad Lambert and his thoughts on Brad going into number 82 tonight.
Yeah, we talked a couple times, since he's been back. At the start of the year, there was a lot more of east-west, not putting his speed on display. And to me, that's one of the areas where he's really kind of, made it hard for defenders, that he's using his quickness. He's speed to the outside. If he does get a chance to go split the D, you're seeing that. He's been responsible without the puck in our end of the rink, those type of things. Sort of his all-round game has improved. He's really, there's a maturity that you see from earlier in the year to now, and that's obviously what you like. You love to see when young guys coming in and getting another opportunity, and it's growth. And then he also got to play in real meaningful games and in some tough games and some tough buildings, and handled himself real well. You're seeing guys trying to take runs at him, and he's not being affected by it. It may happen, and he's also throwing it back at players as well. So there's a lot of real good growth there, and that's what you're hoping, and we were hoping to, and he's contributed to us as well.
Now, of course, Lambert's been around for the last few weeks. Nikita Chibrikov and Braden Yeager just for a couple of games. Here's what the head coach had to say on the most recent additions to the lineup, Nikita Chibrikov and the rookie Braden Yeager.
Yeah, I'll start with Chibi first. Just a lot of the same things. He's coming off almost a year-long injury. And there was a lot early on that sort of quick next step. The first 3 strides was kind of looked like it was missing, and looks like he's gotten it back, and he's getting back up to what it was when we saw him last year when he was playing here, or whether it was training camp 2 years ago, even at the end of the year 2 years ago when he played for us. And I think that's a tough injury, and he's starting to really get back to form. And for him, it was really go play with the Moose, and because it wasn't about learning how to defend. It wasn't learning how to score goals or kill penalties. It was more about getting his quickness back, him being in situations, recognizing that, and playing through tough situations. And I thought he's handled it real well. With Yogs, I don't know if anybody gets to run into the first game like he gets to run into. He's got Hurdle, Marner, Eichel. I'll give Nick Dowd a threat, but he was going against 3 or 4 heavy centermen, real tough guys, whether it was speed or whether it was face-offs, whether it was size. I handled himself well. I really did. I thought that, against Utah, it's back-to-back games. There was a lot coming off his first one. There was a little bit of a letdown in the sense that, you're still excited to play in the NHL, but it was probably so much emotion from the night before that it was a little bit there. But at the end of the day, there's a player there. You can see it. There's a real good hockey mind. He's a guy like most young guys. You got to play the games, get a feel for what the speed of it, the heaviness of the games. For him being at a centerman, taking draws, all those different things. So for him to get a chance to come up here at the end and get a real good taste of what it's about, we can tell the players what to expect until they get here and get a real feel for it. I'm glad he got the opportunity.
That was funny from Arnie. I thought the exact same thing about Braden Yeager, and really in Brad Lambert as well. But Yeager in particular going up against all those centers, and Lambert moving into line 2 for that Vegas game. You get a real idea of what it's like to play top teams, top players in the league, and hopefully that helps these young guys moving forward into training camp next year. Another guy we'll be focusing on big time in September and October is Elias Salmonson, who was brilliant this year in his NHL debut period of time. Unfortunately, he's not available tonight. Here's a quick injury update on where Salmonson's at.
He's having the sort of good days, bad days. So I haven't heard yet today. He did fail another test. That was 2 days ago. So I haven't heard yet today where he's at. But certainly if there's still issues, we're going to make sure we look after his health first and foremost.
All right, not great to hear that it's been a little bit of a tough return from the concussion protocol that he was in. Connor's going to join us in just a minute. One final clip from Arnie, and here's just a message to the fans going into Game 82 and, of course, Fan Appreciation Day tonight.
Yeah, well, we didn't fulfill the objective, and that's to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And for fans, it's real disappointing, especially after last year and the excitement that happened around this time of year around the city and with the games. It really is. The other night when we found out we lost, it's a gut punch. It's not what we do this for. We do it so to get in the playoffs to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, because it does. Once you get in, everybody's got a chance to win. And for the fans, they love supporting the Winnipeg Jets. They love coming. They love the whiteout. They love everything that's associated with being in the playoffs. And it's disappointing when you feel for them not having a chance, and we feel like we let them down. And that's something that, obviously we're not there yet. We're not done the season, but that's all part of the summer review and getting ourselves ready for next year so it doesn't happen again.
Hey, Bob, you hearing the news?
I can't listen to the news, Daryl.
This is different.
Oh, it's so negative.
Not this time. Manitoba's got these new jobs agreements. And when the government builds things like new schools and hospitals, they'll hire Manitoba workers first.
Really?
Creating good jobs with union standards and more apprenticeships for Manitobans. And we'll get rid of those out-of-province license plates on job sites.
Keeping our money working for Manitobans, eh?
You betcha.
Well, that's how it should work.
I knew you'd like it.
A message from Manitoba's Building Trades and Federation of Labor.
Spring into good times at Uptown Alley and eat, drink, and play at the most fun spot in the city. You'll enjoy 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, a state-of-the-art arcade, and good times playing laser tag as well. And in addition, Uptown Alley features incredible food and drink options at their bistro. Pop down to Uptown Alley with your group or make it a party. It's the best place in Winnipeg for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and an amazing spot for corporate events where you just simply pick your activities, any of your add-ons, what you'd like to eat, and the Uptown Alley staff takes care of everything else. For more information, go to uptownalley.ca, book a lane at 488-0000, or pop down and see him at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. Got a move coming up? Lean on our friends and longtime sponsors at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving and storage in Manitoba. Now into their 7th decade with over 60 years of experience, family owned and operated. Head over to their website at rollies.com to find out all about their services serving Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. In the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and then simply let them know when you're moving, where you're moving to, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly and get you a great quote to get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for now for over 60 years in Winnipeg. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more and request an estimate today on your next move at Rollies.com. Has it been a minute since you've been to the dentist? If it is, our pal Doc Harry and the wonderful staff at St. Vital Dental Center would love to see you. They've been taking care of generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Vital for years, and have now moved into a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. They'll handle customers and clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to surgeries like dental implants. Dr. Terry and the gang can absolutely do it all. We'll do it with a smile on their face and make your smile look even better than it's ever been. Go to stvitaldental.ca online to make an appointment. Pop into St. Vital Dental, get that girl taken care of, and tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, Murat Tesh coming up in 15 or so. Let's welcome in our Jet reporter, Connor Rabchak, who's back from the morning skate, unfortunately, for the last time this season. Connor, what's going on, dude? How are you?
Yeah, Huss, I'm doing great. Bittersweet, end of the season, last morning skate. Got to see all of my media friends down at the rink today we'll see them tomorrow, exit interviews and over the weekend and stuff like that. But yeah, last morning skate of the year. It's my first full-time year covering the team. It flew by. I know there were some rough moments when maybe it didn't feel like it was flying by so much, where in the 11-game losing streak, but I can't believe we're already at the last game of the year here. And hoping for a Jets OT win tonight, Huss. I like that thought, so the Jets keep their draft positioning and end off the season with a win.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they'll be playing to win tonight. And to be honest, I think that even if they weren't, the Sharks, after last night in Chicago, giving up 4 in the third period, Celebrini on his own is probably able to go and do some things. And it'll be a fun team to watch. Him and Will Smith and, this young team that, really opened some eyes and was right there in that playoff run for a really long time. But certainly the Jets are going to want to end this game in front of their home fans on a positive note. To move on into the off season. What was the vibe like down there today, in and around the team? This is the first time they'd been back since Saturday night. I know post game on Saturday was miserable. They got embarrassed by the Philadelphia Flyers and were all but eliminated, but they hadn't been. Was there the air of finality around the building today before this game tonight?
Yeah, I got the vibe that you were mentioning there, Huss, on, show the fans that, final game of the season, go out on a win. I think, coming off of that Saturday night game is the last picture I had of the group, and the vibe definitely higher, definitely in better spirits. There's a sense of finality, like you said. There's all these young players in the lineup too that are still trying to make an impact. A guy like Brad Lambert this game, maybe is meaningless, but a guy like Brad Lambert with a good showing can, end off the year on a high note and go into next year's training camp, leaving a solid last impression of this season. So there's definitely still some things to be determined or some things to be gleaned from this final game, even though it is meaningless in the sense of the Winnipeg Jets aren't heading to the playoffs. Neither are the San Jose Sharks. But there's a little bit of excitement, a little bit of sense of finality. And Adam Lowry was even asked about, playing with this group for the last time. When the offseason rolls around, you don't know who's going to be back, which players are going to be leaving. And he said, losing guys sucks. It's a business, and they want to go out tonight and play with each other as a group for maybe what could be the final time, depending on what we see in the offseason with certain players moving on.
One note that we should touch on, and I'll ask Murat a little bit more when he joins us, but Murat did report earlier today that he's hearing that two-time NCAA champion and apparently the March-April Defenseman of the Month, Garrett Brown, will sign with the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets drafted the 6'4" right shot defenseman, 99th overall in 2022. This is from Murat. Good puck retrievals, mobility, poise with the puck. Made lots of progress with DU. People will be happy to know that he is a right shot defenseman as well. And it's not a guy that we've talked a lot about. I mean, usually you're hoping you might get something out of, those mid to late round picks. But this is a guy, Connor, that comes off of a great career at Denver, at a top program, having won 2 championships, and nice addition to the fold, and a guy that we can look forward to watching at, I'm sure, development camp and, of course, training camp next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a guy who has played on a third pair role for a championship University of Denver team 2 of the last 3 years, I believe it is. And look, we're going into this draft and we're looking ahead, and Keaton Verhoff, I'm not comparing Garrett Brown to Keaton Verhoff, but the thing you hear with Verhoff is like, oh, he's a 6'4" right shot defenseman. People don't even talk about what he's good at on the ice. He's just tall and right-handed. That's like something people say. Well, so is Garrett Brown. He's 6'3", 6'4" right shot defenseman, in and around 200 pounds. And he was the 99th overall pick by the Winnipeg Jets in 2022. He played on a very good college team. I'm excited to see what he can do at development camp, what he looks like, and into training camp next season. Obviously, the projection would be he would start with the Manitoba Moose, but this is a player that I haven't watched much of, but when I have watched him, it's in the biggest moments, in the Frozen Four, in the national championship for the University of Denver. And to use everyone's, being a 6'3", 6'4" right shot defenseman can't be a bad thing, right? So we'll see what Garrett Brown can bring to the table here, and good news nonetheless for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think that he was a 2022 draft pick, by my count, that's 4 years ago. So, I mean, this is one of those college players that, could have ended up going. Now, he was drafted from the USHL. Anyway, the good thing is we don't have to talk about that. Sounds like he's signing. He'll go in. We'll get a little bit more from Murat on that a little bit later on. Going to be fun tonight to get a chance to, with our own eyes in person, see Brayden Yager for the first time. Scott Arniel, I thought, made a couple real good. I mean, listen, to go into your first game against a team like Vegas in the situation that they were in, playing up against those centers, it gives you a good idea about what you're going to be going up against night after night after night in the National Hockey League. I thought he acquitted himself well in his first couple games, and now against this Sharks team, man, wouldn't this be a nice time to maybe get on the score sheet for the first time? Big opportunity for Yager. But there was a bit of a change. He'd been playing with Nino Niederreiter. We went over the lines, but just talk to the changes a little bit, and where these young guys, who I think will really be the focus tonight, outside of Kyle Connor, going for 40.
Yeah, so Nino Niederreiter slides up into the top 6. So the Brayden Yager, it's not like he's getting a promotion. It's the vet that's getting a promotion for the meaningless game, which is a whole nother conversation. But the lines are still Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti, Lowry, Niederreiter is probably going to be second in minutes. And Yager's on that fourth line. He had been playing with Nikita Chibrikov and Nino Niederreiter, like you mentioned, Huss. But now he's got Koepke, a little bit more speed on that line. Lambert and Roseanne are with Jonathan Taves on the other bottom six line, which is projected to be the third line. But for the past month or so, the Jets' third and fourth lines have kind of been playing similar minutes anyways. I hope we see more from Yager, Chibrikov, Lambert, Roseanne, really this bottom six. Again, this game, you talk about Kyle Connor getting 40. That would be a cool milestone. It doesn't mean anything. They're not going to the playoffs. I would like to see these young players get maybe a longer look. And then obviously Yager, Chibrikov, and Brad Lambert will all be, or can all be, going back down to the Manitoba Moose and helping them with their playoff run. So it'll be interesting to see those guys in the AHL playoffs as well. But Brayden Yager, I've liked the flashes. There's been ups, there's been downs. You'd expect that from a rookie playing on the road in 2 games. Love the fact that he's penalty killing already. Scott O'Neill talked about that today. He was asked about Yager being on the PK. He said, it's something he did a lot in junior, at the World Junior level with Team Canada. It's something that he hasn't maybe done as much with the Moose, but they have him up in the NHL and killing penalties already. And he made a heck of a play, chipping the puck past Dylan Gunther for his one really great scoring chance in that Utah game on the penalty kills. So getting Brayden Yager up, again, throwing him kind of into the deep end and seeing if he can swim against the likes of Jack Eichel and Hurdle and all of the great centers in Vegas, and then Utah with Logan Cooley as well, is definitely a good sign of things to come. And you want to see those flashes at the NHL level, because we know we've seen those flashes at the AHL level. Yeah,
I mean, just looking at the game sheet from the Utah game, Yager got just over 10 minutes, 10-16, 2:09 in shorthanded. Now, that was behind Kyle Connor. Actually was out there quite a bit shorthanded in that game, 3:17. Cole Koepke, who's the number 1 penalty killer right now, especially with Morgan Barron out. Adam Lowry was 2:38, but then was Brayden Yager. Chibrikov even got in about 25 seconds. I kind of think, and maybe this will depend on the game score. Maybe this would be depending. I do think Connor is going to get plenty of opportunities. Yeah. I was looking at what his shot prop was for tonight, as well as that goal prop tonight, and I think I will be on it. But it would be nice if they can get that out of the way earlier on, knowing the game and obviously what is and what isn't really at stake tonight. I would think, and maybe part of the reason why they did make that change is that we see more of the third and fourth line, and at least just roll 4 lines through most of this game tonight. Why would you not?
It's the Winnipeg Jets. Connor and Scheifele are going to play 22 minutes tonight. I have full confidence in that.
I'll take the under on that.
They played 22 minutes against Utah on the second night of a back-to-back. Why wouldn't they tonight? I don't know.
Well, Connor had 20-52.
Yeah.
Scheifele had 21. Who were they playing with? Was it Gabe?
It was Gabe. Well, it was Roseanne. This is funny. It was Roseanne for the first 2 periods, who was actually last on the team in shifts at 14, and then it was Gabe for the third. And it's Gabe tonight.
And then Velarde for it. So, and again, I think now it's about getting Kyle Connor that 40th goal. But I will take the under on 22. Well, I guess it
maybe 22 is a little hot.
Depends on when he scores. Assuming that he does. If it happens earlier, then it's like, okay, go. Like, for sure, they're going to do everything they can to try to get Kyle Connor his 40th goal.
Sure.
I agree with you on that. But, I mean, listen, does Adam Lowry and Nino Niederreiter need many more shifts? Like, I'm kind of thinking, like, we can call it all we want about the top line. I think that second line will be in the same area as those other ones.
Sign me up for like Perfetti with Yager for a few shifts, Perfetti with Lambert for a few shifts. Like, absolutely, I'm so here for it. If they get Kyle Connor his 40th goal in the first 5 minutes, sign me up for Kyle Connor playing with Brayden Yager for a few shifts, or Mark Scheifele playing with Isak Roseanne. It's game 82. I
think it's because it's game 82. Like, that's kind of what I will make that argument, because this is not the regular season. This is not the way they're doing things.
I think the Lions end the game the way they start tonight. I think they do.
Yeah. Oh, that could be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, it would be neat to maybe see a little bit more. But again, I think for young players, changing up who they're playing with each and every time might be a little difficult as well for it. So you go out. The one thing I'll say is this is a lineup, and let's just see what we've got from the Sharks for tonight. This is a lineup that might be a little more friendly to a player playing in his third game in the National Hockey League as opposed to certainly what he had to go through in the first couple. Remis says the Sharks up right there. I mean, hey, we get a chance to see Celebrini. He's playing with Will Smith. Not really familiar with Igor Chernyshov, but Wenberg, Eklund, and Kiefer Sherwood. Michael Misa, who's a rookie. First chance to see him in Winnipeg, playing with Toffoli and Graf. And then former Winnipeg Ice, Zach Ostapchuk, centering Adam Gaudette and Barclay Goodrow. The defense core for the Sharks. And take a picture of this, guys, because it's going to probably be quite different because they got one guy signed for next year on the blue line. But Shakir Mukhamadullin, long name, talented young player. He's playing with Dmitry Orlov. Mario Ferraro, who I think is going to have some, if he doesn't re-sign with San Jose, will have some interest around the league. He's with Sam Dickinson. And Big Vincent Desharnais with Luca Caganoni on that third pairing. So, I mean, we're looking at a very, very young team that's made some strides so far this year. They sort of hit a wall late, and they certainly hit a wall late last night in that game, Connor, because as I mentioned earlier in the program, sure would have been nice if they could have just at least got that game to overtime and there would be absolutely nothing to be determined in standings tonight and both teams could just go out and try and let her rip.
Yeah, that would have been very nice. It'll still be awesome to see Macklin Celebrini. We haven't seen him here yet in Winnipeg this season, coming off the Olympics and how great he was for Team Canada, leading the team in goals at the Olympics. It'll be awesome to see him. I don't know how much he'll play. Again, San Jose is going to want their superstar young player to not get hurt. And then, Michael Misa, number 2 overall pick recently as well. That's going to be a fun player to get a look at. And Winnipeg Jets legend Tyler Toffoli. Big revenge game tonight in game 82.
Should be revenge on the Jets on him for doing absolutely nothing when he was a Winnipeg Jet. Sorry, that's an editorial comment.
There you go. Way to slide that in there. And then, Igor Chernyshov, second round pick of the 2024 draft for the Sharks. Second round, it was 33 overall because obviously they were the worst team in the league that year. But he's got 18 points in 27 NHL games, 20 years old. So he's another young player that they're throwing right on the wing of Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. And that's a combination that's worked for them pretty quickly here. So that defense core, definitely one that if you're Yager and Chiprikov and Lambert, some of the younger players, you can take advantage of that more than a Vegas. But some young and exciting talent up front tonight that I'm excited to watch.
Connor, I'm sad that this is our last chat on a game day, but obviously you're not going anywhere. We've got lots to talk about going into the playoffs, but great job all year long down following the Winnipeg Jets for us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and looking forward to many more. We'll see you at the rink one more time tonight. Have a great one, pal.
Yeah, enjoy Fan Appreciation Night. All the fans in chat heading down to the game. Hopefully everyone gets lucky and wins one of those electric guitars that we saw. That would be fun. And I'm disappointed, Huss. This is it. Game 82 of 82, but looking forward to a great Bombers season.
Absolutely.
And, maybe one of the more fascinating Winnipeg Jets off seasons. So looking forward to that.
I will agree with that. And we're going to get to all of that with Murat, who will join us in just a moment. Coming up next right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Murat from The Athletic in a moment. Princess Auto is a proud sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and in a lot of ways synonymous with Winnipeg. Headquartered here in the Peg, founded here in Winnipeg, and now serving Canadians coast to coast with the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So while we wait for the Bombers to kick off, get ready for spring. Those projects on your list with great deals throughout the month waiting for you at your local Princess Auto, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West in the city, out in Brandon. And you can always shop online 24 hours a day at princessauto.com. Spring is just around the corner, and our friends at Chud's Power Sports up in Gimli, Manitoba's power sports superstar, are ready to get this snow out of here. But before we do that, great end-of-season deals on sleds and snowmobiles that you can check out. But as we get excited for the snow to leave, great preseason deals on motorcycles of all brands, the best in ATVs and side-by-sides. not to mention golf carts for the summer up ahead as well. And it doesn't stop there. Amazing RV options for you to take advantage of the summer, and so many options when it comes to boats as well, in addition to outboard motors from Suzuki and Mercury. The best deals in town. That's how they've been in business as Manitoba's Powersports Superstore for 80 years. Pop out and see him in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231, and shop online today at their website at chudspowersports.com. April and spring are here, and Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are kicking it off strong with a power event. Right now, you can save big on the batteries that you actually need this season. Lawn tractor batteries starting at just $37.50. RV and deep cycle batteries from $69.50, and heavy duty power like Group 27 and 78 DT starting at $89.50. Need serious cranking power? Check out their 13-inch stud post battery, $94.50 while supplies last. All in stock and all priced to move. Visit Manitoba Battery on the north side on Logan Avenue, on the south side on Dovercourt Drive, and get powered up for spring at Manitoba Battery, powering what matters. Check them out online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, it is time to bring in our good friend Murat one more time during the regular season before Game 82 tonight. Murat's got a lengthy piece on the off-season priorities of the Winnipeg Jets, of which we'll be talking about a lot on this program. Murat, great to have you back on the program. How are you, my friend?
Hey, great to be back. Great to be chatting with you. I love it when there's stakes. So, not the most thrilling Game 82 that there could ever be, but you talked about the offseason. It's going to be maybe not the craziest, most intense one in a public and outward way, but it's going to be one of the most important for the Jets. So I guess we do have a lot to talk about.
Oh, dude, we'll you're exactly right. There is so much to get to. And we've had, I was just thinking really the last 2 years, but especially last year. I mean, we basically finished the season, we watched the playoffs, and it's like, okay, we'll see you in September. I mean, there wasn't really much going on, but that is it's certainly not the case right now. By the way, I do want to mention that this segment brought to you by our friends at your local Prairie Toyota dealers. It's Red Tag Days, and it's time to go check out the Toyota Tacoma. Its standard I-Force engine boasts an impressive towing capacity of up to 6,400 pounds. It is the most powerful Tacoma ever, so whether you're hauling your gear to the rink or heading to an away game, you can tackle it with ease. And when it's time to load up, the available power lift gate makes loading your gear in and out a cinch. Experience power, capability, and convenience with the Toyota Tacoma. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer during Red Tag Days from March through May. Murat, just before we get to the off season, what the heck did I just do there? Did I just screw up my mic? Sorry, I'm so excited to talk about the offseason with you. Tell us about Garrett Brown. You reported earlier today that you're hearing that the defenseman from NCAA champion Denver will be signing with the Jets. This is a guy who's a 22 draft pick. He's not a guy we've talked about a lot, but maybe we should have been, as he's had such a great college career.
Well, yeah, it's a situation where with that 2022 draft, there were some pretty shiny names that we spent all of our time talking about. They took Rutger McGroarty at 14. They took Brad Lambert before the end of the first round. There was a lot going on. But Garrett Brown, the 99th pick in that draft, somebody I was working with on a piece had to decline a call. Pardon me. The pick that they made was kind of unheralded at the time. But at that time, Garrett Brown was a late bloomer. He'd been 5'9", right-handed defenseman at some of his camps as a junior. This was a bit of a project. He continued to grow. The guy's 6'4" now, big right-handed defenseman. He's mobile. His puck retrievals are good. His skating is good. He's got great feet. He turns really well. And he played a big role in the second NCAA championship for Denver. He was hurt during the first one, but during this one, during the Frozen Four and final, he played a big role, earned accolades, was a part of that championship winning team. He would have, I'm not sure what left to prove at college. So now it's a question of, does he turn pro? And as I understand it, yeah, he's decided that it's time, and that that the Winnipeg Jets are where he'll be doing it. So that's a spot of good news for the Winnipeg Jets, just waiting for that contract to get finalized and announced.
Well, we'll look forward to it. Hopefully we can get him on the show when he signs with the Winnipeg Jets, talk a little bit about the offseason, and looking forward to the to make the move. As far as tonight goes, as I was saying off the top of the program, I mean, we've sort of been stressing about where the Jets are going to finish up in the line for the lottery. San Jose was up 2-1 last night going into the third period and then gave up 4. So a clean win by the Jets would actually bounce them behind San Jose. So as I've said, let's manifest an OT win with Kyle Connor's 40th in overtime to make it happen. But I mean, as far as you watching this game tonight, there's the one milestone. Will Kyle Connor get 40 goals? Other than that, probably more of a real focus on the young players, including Braden Yeager, who's going to get his first chance to do it in front of the home fans as a Winnipeg Jet.
Yeah, I think you've got it exactly right. For me, I'll be looking at those young players and just looking for how well do they fit in? How happy are they? To see Braden Yeager on the broadcast the other day talking to Dan Robertson and just sort of the class with which he carries himself, you're just happy for the young man. And there's a solid chance that this is a productive NHLer, a middle six type of player in the long run. Well, how close can he get? What's it like to play in front of the hometown fans? All of that sort of stuff. That's the sort of thing that you really look for. For me, I have a bad attitude about some of these milestones. And maybe if you're in the chat, you can just sort of talk me out of my bad attitude. I'm a little crusty. I just think man, amazing. I actually Kyle Connor, have at you. Score your 40th goal. That's wonderful. Mark Scheifele over 100 points. That's brilliant. There's so many good things that they've done and so many great accomplishments. But, the Jets have played a couple of meaningless games now. And Scott Arniel's played those guys 21 minutes a night. And they briefly reunited the Connor Scheifele Velarde line, long shifts again, long power play shifts, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, what is this for? It just feels like they're milestone hunting at this point. And I guess that's legitimate. They're people. Why wouldn't you want to hit that nice round number, right? So that's why I'm being self-critical. When I see those ice time minutes crawl up and I see those long shifts and they're over a minute again for the 8th time on the night for the 5th game in a row, it's okay, ease up there. Just like there are other things that the Winnipeg Jets could be focused on. And so I've taken a bah humbug, relatively uncelebratory approach, even as, I wish good things upon these people.
Well, listen, it's a very valid point, and I think big picture, you can step back and look at this team for a long time and question whether they were too focused on certain players, certain lines, as opposed to really making the whole work better as a unit for better results. That being said, it's game 82, and there's nothing left to be done for this year, so hopefully he can get his damn goal, and we'll at least look at that as a positive for the year. But I think your point is very well taken. And it goes into the beginning of the offseason, which will be, I'm sure Chevy and the guys will be in the office at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We'll find out whenever everyone talks and does that. But it is on to next year. And as we've been talking about extensively on this program, and you've got a great long read in The Athletic, the investigation as to why this year played out as it did has to be thorough, has to be extensive, and it really does have to dig into every level of the organization, because it's not just about, Scott Arniel's coaching decisions with the lineup or who's playing. It's not just about the moves that backfired spectacularly on the Winnipeg Jets by Chevy in the last year or so. It also needs to include the scouting, pro scouting, drafting, and obviously what's happening at the Manitoba Moose. But let's start with the guy that's in the front of it all, Kevin Cheveldayoff. I mean, your piece, which is entitled Ranking the Offseason Priorities, where Winnipeg needs to get back on track. Number one on that list is review Kevin Cheveldayoff's recent track record. And just before I turn it over to you, I will say this. Chevy, over his body of work, has done a lot of really good things. He's come out incredibly well in some very difficult situations. Earlier on, this organization was known for having a very keen eye for talented players and having them turn into NHL stars, and that was a big part of got them to where they were. But I would argue that the last, we'll call it 14 months, from the trade deadline last year with the Shen and Tanev acquisitions and the cost that was given to get them into the offseason with the free agent signings, and we can debate as to how far down the list that they had to go through before they got those guys to come in, and then the way things were handled this year. Chevy's had a long, long run here. It would be hard to argue that this hasn't been the toughest 12 to 14 month stretch in his period as the Winnipeg Jets GM.
100%. Last year, President's Trophy win, there's some talk, oh, hey, let's discuss him for General Manager of the Year. That's not an award that I vote on, but that's a discussion that was valid. Maybe not because of last year's work specifically. The trade deadline was, call it a missed opportunity, call it a failure. They didn't get what they wanted, and then the players that they ultimately did acquire hurt them in the playoffs, especially Luke Shen. It was the start of a turn. It was the start of a downturn in the impact of the decisions that Cheveldayoff made. And I'm with you. And if anyone wants to do the bullet points of why Cheveldayoff's moves helped build that team, cheap acquisitions of Niederreiter and Nemestikov, extensions for them, great trades out of bad situations like Dubois for Velarde, Iafallo, and Kupari. There's many more. Go back to the Andrew Kopp trade that Brad Lambert, Elias Salomonsson, Morgan Barron, and the pick that became Thomas Milic. That's pretty darned good work. This last year hasn't lived up to that nearly. And when you have a tenure that's 15 years long, when you've won, you're in the bottom 10 of playoff games won during that full stretch, you're not untouchable. Winnipeg's made it out of the second round one time ever. And I just fail to see how that results-based resume is treated with the untouchable glow that Cheveldayoff is treated with. And you have Mark Chipman talking to Elliot Friedman, I believe that was the piece, where he says, I hope that Cheveldayoff outlasts me in this organization. Like, there's Jet for Life vibes going on here. And great, like, I'm not going to carve apart the guy's full resume because it wouldn't make sense to do that. It just seems to me that if the process has led to the decisions that they've led to, from that trade deadline to a series of older and slower veterans who were theoretically the difference between knowing what it takes in the playoffs and not, and then watching the results you got from that, the processes that go into these decisions have to be carvable, right? Even if it's the same person that comes back, this shouldn't be an untouchable person, and the way that they've gone about their decision-making absolutely can't be untouchable. Winnipeg has to get better and make better decisions in that regard.
Yeah, listen, we all know that he has one of, if not the toughest job in the league. But at the same point, it's still the job and you have to do it. And I mean, we'll never know. And I mean, to their credit, I mean, they don't throw out all these excuses of, hey, we actually tried to get this guy, and this guy, and they all said no. We kind of know that is the playing field for the Winnipeg Jets right now. And fairly or unfairly, you are still judged by how your team does. The fact of the matter was this was a hell of a good hockey team last year that fell short in the playoffs, that came back looking to take a step forward, and they probably took 2 steps back. Now, the offseason of what happened last year and the players that they were looking to get, it seemed like at the time they felt that they were so close. They were rounding out their roster to be more sort of playoff ready. The problem is that this team did not compete at a level, and obviously they had some really ugly stretches, that through 82 games, they earned their spot to be in that Stanley Cup tournament, and that's why we're talking about the final game of the season tonight. Assuming that there's no changes, obviously, in management, and I mean, I would be absolutely stunned if there were. We moved down that list to other things, but I mean, for me, think of anything that you've done for a long time. You get to a point where you can look back and think about yourself 5 years ago, 10 years earlier, and all that you have learned. My biggest hope is that the stark reality of what this season was for the Winnipeg Jets creates a full evaluation of exactly what you talked about, the processes, what they're valuing, all of those things that might have them make decisions differently or be open to other avenues. Because I think what we've seen on a number of times this year is that they maybe thought them things, stayed with it, and were way too late to pivot until it was way too late on the season. And that's why they're not playing next week.
I guess the big question is, what is this organization's capacity for self-criticism? Because, people are not universally excellent or awful. Decisions are good or bad. Is that something that they can evaluate? And are their processes something that they can improve upon and iterate upon? Every summer, they hold assessments and they review themselves. And every summer, they come to conclusions about what they need to continue to get better at, to consolidate that they're definitely good at, to fix that's not gone right. And, oftentimes they've made some really great decisions. Look, Rick Bowness, what a wonderful hire, especially in hindsight, knowing the culture change that was needed for the Winnipeg Jets. They did a really good job of going outside the organization, talking to so many people, getting honest reviews. It was really incredible stuff. Where did that go? Like last summer when these decisions were made, I agree with you, as if to round out the roster, treating things as if it was just about like putting the finishing touches on this playoff quality team. Well, what went wrong there? Did they incorrectly assess the value of those players? Why didn't they move on from Luke Shen? Did they believe his intangible qualities somehow outweighed all of those goals against, or did they just not project all of those goals against? And if they didn't, why? Like what processes led to failing to anticipate that? With Elias Salomonsson, who's hurt now and who started, he told me personally directly, he felt like he struggled to start last season. He became a contributing member of the top four during Winnipeg's best stretch of the year. So was Winnipeg right not to recognize that was going to happen? Or, maybe he just had a phenomenal season? Or what were they blind to? Was it the the desire to play those veterans? Was it the sense that they were complete? Did they miss something that he was capable of? Or is it possible that the amount of work that goes into working with a young player who has up days and down days and who, on some shifts might be worse than that veteran, but whose aggregate impact is better? Like, was that just too far down the list of priorities? Is that a weak spot? Is that a place where a team could actually gain a competitive advantage if they worked with a player like that to get more out of them earlier? They've made some decisions that missed, and there has to be a sense of humility, I think, as they approach solving the problems that went into making those decisions. And that's at the management level. Plus, coaching has a whole bunch as well.
Well, I mean, we'll get into coaching in just 1 second. I will say this, and, from talking to people that have been close to the team, I've gotten this a number of times, and not just this year, but over the years. I think that they have been understandably so concerned about the challenges that they have in player acquisition and getting players here. And, from top to bottom, they treat the players first class. They do everything they can for them. But particularly in a situation like Shen, a veteran player, knows tons of guys around the league, I think they brought him in. We saw it with what they did last year down the stretch. Yeah, take the game off. Go see your kids. I mean, that doesn't normally happen in the NHL. I mean, at this point, you got to be there with your team, and we know there's some sacrifices that everybody have to make. It seems like they went so far to make sure that the guys that they have, especially the veteran players, were playing, and they overlooked things that weren't happening, that they did it to the detriment of the team. And listen, they're never going to be the Vegas Golden Knights, being the most cutthroat group. But at a certain point, the right thing to do for the team is to put the best team on the ice and to play those guys and all that. And I think they made decisions that were in stark contrast to what everyone, including them, were seeing because of principles of what they'd committed to people and to do that. And I think there has to be a spot in the middle of, trying to do right by all your players and understanding it, but also at the end of the day, realize that the bottom line is winning hockey games. And maybe some of those decisions this year backfired when it came to their record.
Well, the record is the key thing, right? Like, maybe there's a lens through which a really popular guy league-wide like Luke Shen having some nice things to say about you has downstream impacts PR-wise on other players, on people who say, what was your time like in Winnipeg? And he knows so many people, and he says, great, they were wonderful to me. Maybe there's a small chance that helps contribute to Winnipeg's status in some way. He didn't contribute enough to the Winnipeg Jets on the ice to make up for that. There are other ways. And a team's record and a continuing sense that winning is possible, not just that winning is possible, but that the organization is doing everything that is possible with winning as the number one focus, probably does more for you PR-wise. And there's a lens, it's cheesy, it may be inaccurate, but I'm thinking through it today that Winnipeg makes a lot of fear-based decisions. I'm just putting it out there, try it on if you like, get rid of it if you don't. If you're playing Connor Hellebuyck 20 out of 23 games at the end of the season, it's kind of as though you're afraid of what happens if you play your backup. If you play Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele as often as you do, regardless of shift lengths, regardless of defensive habits, because they're the only ones that are scoring, it seems possible that maybe it's fear-based. Hey, we need to do this for our top stars, these wonderful players who chose Winnipeg and committed to them, lest maybe someday they don't choose us. And I think that decisions made with that paradigm, if that paradigm even exists at all, can only hurt in the long run. It's the same thing as veterans versus young players. Well, hey, I know what I'm going to get with this veteran. I'm worried that this young player may not be consistent from shift to shift. I think that holds the ceiling down. I think that holds teams back from reaching ceilings when the what if this goes wrong is a bigger driver than what if this goes right. And again, I'm shooting from the hip. I don't know that that's the case, but when you start looking at decision after decision through that lens of the Jets kind of like being a little less experimental than they could be. You can't split Connor and Scheifele even when you've lost 11 games in a row. You're at the bottom of the table because you need their chemistry, but you're losing anyway. Like, to me, that has to come from somewhere. These guys know so much more about hockey than I'll ever learn, and yet it seems detrimental to the long-term success and ceiling of the hockey club. I think sometimes they're worried about the consequences more than they're excited about the possibilities.
I agree with you 100% on that. And I mean, it goes to, let's just take Gustav Nyquist for a minute. The guy came here, did nothing, scored one goal, was in the lineup for a long, long time, way longer than I think he would have been in most lineups. And I think the fear is that, well, how are we going to get other players to come here if the guy that we signed in the offseason, who's just 2 years removed from 74 points or whatever it was, comes here, struggles for 20 games, and then is on the fourth line or out of the lineup? Well, that happened. But it happened probably 30 games later than it probably should have, and at what cost? So, listen, I don't think you're far off base on that. But again, these are opinions, and everyone is going to have one. Listen, the Chevy and the job that he has to do, targets for this club, we will be talking about all off season long as we wrap the year. You mentioned coaching. Listen, Arnie hit all the right buttons last year. We saw what happened over the course of the regular season into the playoffs. How will you look back at the pros and cons of the coaching staff for the 82 games?
My starting point is believing that the roster was not great shakes and that it was injured. I think my offseason projection was a wild card spot, but that they would be in the playoffs. And when you imagine that, I think my preview was called, the Jets are going to struggle, don't count them out. Well, it turns out it was okay to count them out. When you add the Hellebuyck injury, when you add how poorly Eric Comrie played during that particular stretch when Hellebuck was out. Sandberg and Perfetti's injuries, Adam Lowry being such a shell of himself compared to previous years. I almost begin to build an out for him. And then at the same time, it's not just about the ingredients for the sandwich that you're given. It's kind of what you do with it. And there were times where I thought that Scott Arniel just showed, I want to say, a lack of creativity or experimentation towards solving his own problems. And I think it made it worse. He had a very real problem at the start of the season, utter lack of secondary scoring for the first half of the year. And that's a tough spot to be in. What do you do with it? Okay, well, he had an idea, which I think is a completely valid one. Connor and Scheifele and Velarde largely played only together, and the percentage of their minutes that Josh Morrissey was on the ice for skyrocketed, even compared to last year, even knowing that's your number one D and your number one forward group, and you're always going to play them a lot. Well, that number went up. It was like a new rule was started. These guys play together. There was so much emphasis on it. And okay, that helps that group score. Okay, Winnipeg won some games. Those guys scored a lot of points. Nobody else was doing it. And then they started losing, and they go 3-8-1 without Hellebuck, and they end up losing 11 games in a row at one point, and there wasn't a different look. So for me, that's a miss. And it's not, Connor and Scheifele, I talk about them a lot. It's because they're the two best ones. It's not because I think that they're some awful players. I see them as potential solutions that Winnipeg didn't look for. What if Connor on one line and Scheifele on another, scoring less than they would together because they have offensive chemistry, helps a team win more than them together when nobody else has anything going on? Winnipeg could have tried that out. Colorado mixes and matches McKinnon and Netchus and everybody throughout the season, even when they're dominating, just to look at more things. Winnipeg didn't even look when they were out 11 games in a row. And that, for me, that's where you begin asking questions of a coaching staff. You can get into the power play cost them points, a whole bunch of other systemic things and what have you, and the roster quality. But I think that's where he hurt himself, and it's worth being clear-eyed in criticism about the head coach as well.
Do you remember? I'm trying to remember. What was the game? And I'm sure they lost. The game when Arnie was asked about why didn't you do this or whatever, and he just went personnel. You remember that? Like, for whatever reason, that resonates in my head so much when we think about this, because and it's completely valid. At times you were without some players that were available. I don't think it was like, taking a shot at everyone on the team. We just don't have the horses. But that resonates so much with me because he was at times working in, with maybe one hand tied behind his back. But all the points you just said were valid. I mean, they didn't exhaust everything. I don't think there's any way anybody can argue that they did. Probably when they really needed to do it, when they were struggling the most, because, you can have a great final 30 games to the season. If the first 50 sunk you, you end up with fan appreciation night on game number 82 and all of us looking at playoff tables going forward. Moving from the coach and the GM, something else that I think has been far more of a topic, in the past 2 months is the overall development plan for the Winnipeg Jets. Going down to the Manitoba Moose, how will you look at, put it this way, if you were in charge, where do you start the evaluation of, are we doing the best for our young players to come up, get opportunities, be ready, and make the most of them?
I mean, I think the number one question, I would start almost theoretically, what is the most that a team could do for young players to help them get better? And, blue sky, budgets, no limit whatsoever. What would you ideally do? Because at some point, an individual player is responsible for what happens to them. I mean, you're in charge of your own life, right? This is what you get dealt, how you handle it. It's not always development's fault that the player didn't hit. And, at the other end, there's the theory that we all believe that there are things you can do. So one of those things, I think, is is a player playing at the highest level from which they can still be learning and be taught lessons? Are they getting substantial time to solve problems, get them right sometimes, get them wrong sometimes, and be an impact player and be challenged and not dominate or develop bad habits at levels that they're above? Well, how often does that happen? What's the ideal age range for development? Like, I've had a lot of people put it to me that between 18 and 23 are the most important years of players' development. Okay, so what are we doing for players in that regard? And are we giving them enough opportunities? Winnipeg's in an awkward spot with the Moose, where 2 years ago, it was a wasteland. Nobody scored. They were 31st, I think, or second worst in the AHL. Nobody was scoring. They had to work so hard just to get a scoring chance, and it was usually the AHL veterans who did it. And you're thinking, well, okay, the prospects have no insulation whatsoever. They need a little bit of help. That's drowning. That's not having a good enough context from which to actually do the things that you're meant to do at the next level. And then this year, it seems to me, though they're doing a decent job of it, that a lot of the younger guys get buried. There are times when you've got Barlow and Jagger on the fourth line, and you don't have Jagger taking the big draw always. Barlow might play. Dave Minuk was just telling me Barlow's 5-on-5 games improved of late, but when he's been struggling, you might not see him on the power play. The power play has been really unproductive. There's been such an even distribution of minutes, and that makes sense because they went out and spent so much money on AHL veterans to help a team win, and theoretically that helps insulate those guys. But it shouldn't come at the cost of opportunities to play big minutes and to learn. Because, I mean, Walker Durow, geez, I would have taken him on the Jets this year, but he's not worth more to the Winnipeg Jets' future than Lambert or Jagger or Chibrikov or Barlow are. Excuse me, just getting over something here. So that's a little bit of it. The other is resources in terms of what happens in terms of communication with prospects otherwise. They have, Mike Keane and Jimmy Roy, there is an open dialogue between those people and top prospects. There's certain evaluations that they do. Well, are those the right evaluations? Is that communication helping the prospects? Is it hindering them? Do they sometimes contribute to players' discomfort with their own development? Is there theoretically better? What is it? What about training separately from the team with the health, nutrition, all of those sorts of things? Are they doing literally the best things that they have available to them? Whatever it is about human development and athletic development, is Winnipeg doing the best that it can for its players from 18 to 23? And within confines, they might argue yes, but in a blue sky, I don't know that they can.
I'm with you, and that is, we'll be spending a lot of time talking about this. And listen, it's going to be fun. The Moose are in the playoffs. They're going to be having home games next week, so we'll be able to get to all of that. Thanks to Remo, he did this. So that personnel quote was actually the last time the Jets played the Sharks, and it was that 2-1 overtime loss. And this is from Mike. He said, Kenny asked Arneal for his thoughts on the NHL now losing 10 of the last 11 that go beyond regulation. That was the OT, especially compared to last year's dominance. And that was the context of it. Personnel has a lot to do with it. So, that was after he had asked about how, and Mike said, quote, his veteran group came out. He was asked how his veteran group came out to start to the third. And he said, we had talked about it. That was embarrassing. We gave up a breakaway of 3-on-2, a 2-on-1. Now, we just checked it. That was a game that, if you recall, Stan was out in overtime because Pionk was out of the lineup and Josh Morrissey was out of the lineup. So I think, if anything, it shows how much it falls on the shoulders of Josh Morrissey at times. But, the personnel going up, many of us took it as a shot at maybe the general manager. But obviously, I don't think that was the case. But it just goes to show the ups and downs of the season and how Arneal, back to the coaching, kind of handled it. There were some fire and brimstone speeches. There were some quiet ones. There was... most notably, don't worry about it with you last week after the Philly game. And I guess you have that when you have that many unfortunate opportunities to speak after losses and disappointing performances. You'll get the full range of all of those. Bottom line, Murat, where we go from here will be determined by a seismic offseason. And again, I listened to Arniel today speaking about the final season and the message to the fans. I certainly felt from his tone that he's very comfortable with, his position moving forward. Are you of the opinion that when we get to September, that the coach, maybe not the entire coaching staff, but certainly the head coach will be there, the general manager will be there, and the changes, if any, well, there will be some, are going to be personnel-based within the roster?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think that Scott Arniel is going to be back, and I think that staff would likely be back as well, unless there's opportunities for bigger roles elsewhere. I think Winnipeg gets carved for its loyalty and how Maurice had to fire himself and all that sort of stuff and all. Even, you heard me criticize Arniel's decision making a moment ago, and I think, it's possible there are better coaches somewhere else available to the Winnipeg Jets. I think that last year and this year combined probably earn him a runway of at least another season in most clubs. Maybe not Vegas, but in most places, you aggregate the performance, and I think he has the 8th best record, or the Winnipeg Jets have the 8th best record over the last 2 seasons combined, and you might accept that. You might say, okay, well, I'd rather keep that guy if I feel that I believe in him, and if my veterans believe in him, if the key people all sort of feel the right way, I would expect that they'd bring him back and give him another shot, especially believing, as I believe, that he wasn't handed that much of a roster and the health wasn't that great either. I can't find the route to them letting him go unless he doesn't want to be here, and I don't think that's the case, or unless, in their exit meetings tomorrow, all the star players say, hey, we had it with that guy, but I can't imagine it given the minutes that they get. So, yeah, I think he's coming back.
That would be outrageous, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, well, as I said, as we go forward with our conversations through the playoffs and closer to the draft and, of course, free agency, we've got way more topics and way more angles to look at, because I do think that the need and the potential for change on the hockey club is far, far greater than it's been in the last number of years, which I guess from a business side for you at The Athletic and us on Winnipeg Sports Talk is a good thing, because it gives us lots of interesting things to talk about and engage with viewers. Gang, get over to The Athletic at your next opportunity and get on Murat's latest ranking the Jets' top off-season priorities, of which there are many, where Winnipeg needs to get back on track. Murat, thank you for everything this year. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. Maybe we'll get into some other teams about the playoffs and some more Jet stuff, but it is always a highlight of our week when you pop by. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, I love doing it, so thanks for having me.
Right on. There is Murat attached. TheAthletic.com is where you'll find his work, and the latest is up right now. And as we mentioned right off the top, also mentioning that Garrett Brown expected to sign with the Winnipeg Jets coming out of the University of Denver. We've got much more to come. A little MJ preview. But coming up next, our pal Aaron Bronsteter is in town. We're going to get you ready for the Octagon and Fight Night at Canada Life Center on Saturday. That's next on WST. WST would like to thank our friends at Cleanline Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk throughout the Jet season. When we're doing the Winnipeg Jet lines, we do it with the gang at Cleanline, who are the leaders in Winnipeg residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical services. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience. And like the captain, Adam Lowry, has the back of his teammates, Cleanline has yours with 24/7 emergency services. So when you're in a jam at any time of the day, Cleanline has you covered. 204-500-2001 is the number. Write that one down, 204-500-2001 for 24/7 emergency services. from the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. You can find out more online at cleanline.ca. Spring is here, and it's time to get down to Winnipeg Sports Superstore Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway to get ready for it. The bike shop is open with incredible selection of bikes, including e-bikes that you'll want to check out. Of course, baseball season is here, all the equipment ready to go for the season, and tons of Toronto Blue Jays merchandise. All the soccer players are getting loaded up with the best selection of boots and unis around, not to mention tons of World Cup merch of Canada and the rest of the world just in time for kickoff. And for all you NFL fans, the draft is coming up in just a couple weeks. The NFL draft hats are all up on the wall, and for the first time in a while, they're actually really nice. So you can pop down there, get ready for spring, the World Cup, the NFL draft, Blue Jays season, and more at Royal Sports. 50 years plus, family owned and operated at 750 Pembina Highway. It's fight week in Winnipeg, UFC on Saturday, and Boston Pizza is the place to be. Pop into your local Winnipeg and area Boston Pizza now and enter to win a VIP UFC experience to this Saturday's UFC Fight Night at Canada Life Centre. The grand prize includes 2 official UFC Fight Night tickets with premium seating, in-venue hospitality with UFC athlete experiences, and reserved access to the ceremonial weigh-ins. Plus, Friday night, come into Boston Pizza City Place for a UFC fighter meet and greet after the weigh-ins at 7 p.m. There'll be pictures and autographs with the surprise UFC fighter, UFC prizes, and loaded Octagon pizzas on special. Book your table. Give Crystal a call. City Place, 925-4109. Get ready for fight week and UFC Fight Night at Canada Life Centre at Boston Pizza. Much more to come on WST, but first, a big shout out to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
UFC Fight Night, Saturday night, Canada Life Centre, headlined by Mike Murat, representing Canada. A lot of Canadian talent on the card. I'm fired up for the fights, but I'm also just as excited to welcome our good friend Aaron Bronsteter of Sportsnet here to the Peg for the big card on the weekend. What's up, AB? It's great to have you here in Winnipeg.
That's great to be here. This is one of the few major Canadian cities that I hadn't visited, so nice to check that off the bucket list. Still have like Saskatoon, Quebec City. I think those are like the 2 other ones I haven't been to in terms of like, I guess, major metropolitans in the country.
I'm just glad that you got here earlier in the week, so you got a chance to see some beautiful spring weather, because these couple days heading into the fights, not very spring-like. Which, combining with the end of the hockey season, has people maybe not in the greatest of moods. But I will say, fight fans are very, very fired up. This is it's been since 2017 since the UFC has been to Winnipeg. Remember that one with Robbie Lawler on the card? And now it seems like a new generation of Canadian fighters sort of highlighting this big event downtown Winnipeg on Saturday.
Yeah, very much a showcase event for Canadian talent. We have 9 fighters from Canada on the card. I think it's a 13-fight card. So you're going to have a Canadian in about 80% of the fights on the card. And, typically you see this when the UFC travels to different countries, outside of the U.S. They'll try to showcase as many fighters as they can from those locales. So this card, I can't remember the last time we had 9 Canadians. I mean, maybe some of the numbered events over the years that have taken place in Canada had that amount. But for a fight night card to have a headliner from Canada, it's been a long time since we've had a Canadian-born headliner and a fighter that trains in Canada headlining. I think the last time would have been GSP against Bisping, the last time we had a fighter that actually trains in Canada headlining a UFC event. And that would have been back in 2017. So it's been some time.
Now, it's funny. We're very familiar with the Murat family here in Winnipeg from brother Jeff, who played a game for the Winnipeg Jets, was a star for the Manitoba Moose, is now playing in the Los Angeles Kings. But we all remember when Mike had one of his big fights early on in his career, the entire Moose team was actually playing, and they recorded the fight, and they went in. The entire team watched it afterwards. We got a big win. We talked about that with Jeff on the board before. Jeff's going to probably be in the playoffs, so won't be able to be here for the event. But Mike will be, and he is taking on Gilbert Burns in the main event. Give us the little CV on Mike Murat, who will certainly be the crowd favorite on Saturday night, where he's at in his career, and the significance of this opportunity Saturday night at Canada Life Center.
Yeah, Mike is a fighter who is very well-rounded. He actually took a couple years off from fighting to be a coach. He was a coach for several years at Team Alpha Male, which is one of the bigger camps out in Sacramento, under Uriah Faber, Hall of Famer. And Mike is someone who I think has had to adapt a little bit in the UFC from what he was when he got to the promotion to what he is now. When he got to the promotion, very fast starter, would always look for finishes, more of an aggressive fighter. And then he fought Neil Magny a couple of years ago and unfortunately just ran out of gas. He was winning that fight, and then in the third, sort of ran out of gas. Neil Magny took advantage and got the finish against Mike. And since then, Mike has fought a little bit more tempered in the cage. He hasn't been as aggressive at finding the finish. He's fought a lot more patiently. And as a result, I think that it has made him a better fighter. He's a lot calmer in the cage. He's not chasing like he used to. And I think as a result of that, once you get to the higher levels of the UFC, into the ranked fighters, you don't want to be a fighter that's dependent on the finish, that's dependent on trying to beat someone early, because especially in a fight like this, it's going to be 5 rounds. You can run out of gas in a hurry if you are chasing in a fight like that, especially against the guy as durable as Gilbert Burns. So this has been kind of a new look Mike Murat for the last couple of fights. His fights against Kevin Holland, Charlie Radke. He'll take a finish if he can get it, but he is mostly looking to find openings and wait for his opponents to make a mistake.
I mean, I guess at this point, when you get to the level that Mike's at, you got to be able to win in different ways. I mean, one-dimensional fighters often eventually meet their match at some point down the road as you climb the ladder. And obviously, he's on a bit of a roll right now. Tell us about his opponent and what's at stake for Mike in this fight. I mean, what would a victory mean for Mike Murat moving forward in his UFC journey?
Yeah, so Mike was ranked for a time. He had gotten into the top 15, was ranked 15 for a couple of weeks, and then he got bumped out of the rankings because someone else won a fight or something along those lines. This time around, Gilbert Burns ranked number 11. If he gets a win, he'll be on the cusp of the top 10 of the division and will be in a spot where he's only going to be facing ranked fighters going forward for the most part, as long as he can hold on to a ranking. With Gilbert Burns, I mean, Burns has fought a who's who of the top guys. He had a very close fight against Khamzat Chimaev, who's now the middleweight champion. He's fought Kamaru Usman for the title. Just fighting extremely tough competition time in and time out, and has fought a way higher level of competition than Mike has. That being said, he's on a 4-fight skid, losing to, again, top guys. But that's why when you're in Gilbert Burns' position, you're ranked number 11. You fought guys that are ranked higher than you. Now it's time to open the door for some of the fighters outside the rankings and see if you still belong. And that's what Gilbert Burns is doing here. He's putting his ranking up on the line in a main event fight against Mike Murat. Gilbert's always calm, extremely well-rounded fighter, mostly comes from a jiu-jitsu background, was a very competitive world champion in jiu-jitsu before he got to the UFC, but has improved his striking so much and improved his wrestling a lot. So these are going to be two very well-rounded fighters that are going to test each other wherever the fight goes.
Huge fight, safe to say, for Mike Murat. I mean, a victory against someone with the career and the ranking of Gilbert Burns would be, one of the biggest that he's had, and would put him into a spot to probably be on more of the numbered cards. And, if he kept winning against top competition, move towards what obviously end goal, which would be to, fight for a belt at some point.
Yeah, he's been a mainstay on the Canadian cards. But like you said, once you crack the rankings, they want to have ranked fighters on all the top cards. So you could see him headlining other fight nights outside of Canada. You could see him on numbered events, as you mentioned. So this is a massive opportunity for Mike. He's a sizable favorite in this fight as well. He had gotten all the way up to around minus 500 last week, and now it seems to have settled back down into the minus 300, minus 350 range. But a very tough test for him. I think that those odds certainly are not indicative of how close this fight actually is.
Interesting. Well, I mean, he'll be a big favorite. People are going to want to bet on him, want to bet the guy that they're cheering for. But this is, I'm with you. I was surprised to see the numbers as big as they were, knowing, where Gilbert Burns is ranked. Tell us about Jasmine Jasudavicius from St. Catharines, who will be also one of the featured fighters representing the red and white.
Yeah, she's a training partner of Mike Murat. Mike bounces around to a lot of different gyms, whereas Jasmine is a mainstay at Niagara Top Team, which is one of the up-and-coming gyms here in Canada. She was on the cusp of potentially a title fight in her last bout against Manon Fiorot and got finished for the first time in her career. Now she's facing Karine Silva, which I think is a fight that she has a lot of advantages in. I think she'll have a grappling advantage, at least a wrestling advantage. I think the striking will be pretty close. I think they're only about one ranking apart. So very competitive fight for Jasmine, and a solid bounce back spot for her if she does belong in the top 4, top 3 of this division. I think that she probably imagines she does.
Tell us about Tanner Boser. I remember him before being in the UFC. I hadn't heard him for a while. Now he's apparently working in a maximum security prison, and then gets a call to be on the card.
Yeah, Tanner actually had won his last UFC fight, but had said some things that angered some people at the UFC. Ended up fighting twice on the regional scene since then, was victorious, and now he's found his way back to the UFC. He's a fighter that I've always loved covering. He's a very kind of outspoken guy, funny guy, has a very dry sense of humor. But happy to see him back in the UFC. I'm not sure if he's still working at the prison. I know he just opened his own gym. The gym that him and his team had trained at ended up I guess they wanted too much rent money. So the gym ended up becoming more of a CrossFit gym, and the MMA part of it was sort of phased out, and the coach retired from coaching for the most part. So now Tanner ended up opening his own gym so that a lot of his training partners could train there. But happy to have him back in the UFC. He certainly belongs in the promotion. He had a pretty good run with them the first time around, and good to have him back in the heavyweight division, where he told me yesterday he plans to finish out his career as a heavyweight.
Yeah, and he said he was extra excited to be here in Winnipeg. He said, those are not Canadians, but this is the West. I'm a West guy. Hopefully people will be behind him. And he's going up against a guy from Turkey, Gökhan Sarıkam. This is a good opportunity for Boser to sort of get a win and get back into the mix.
Yeah, I think both these fighters are probably pretty close in terms of where they're at. Gökhan Sarıkam is, I believe, a year older than Boser. Even though he's a UFC newcomer, he's never fought in the promotion before, but does have a lot of experience fighting for high-level promotions outside of the UFC for several years, mostly in Bellator. So it should be a very competitive fight and an interesting matchup for Tanner in his return.
I was reading in the Free Press, our pal Taylor Allen spoke with someone.
Met him yesterday. Nice guy.
Yeah, awesome dude. And folks can read more about this in the free if they want. But he talked about UFC newcomer Jamie Siraj from Vancouver. And what's crazy about this, he's only 31 years old. He had a brain infection in 2020 that forced him into a coma. He went septic and almost died in early 2022, spent over a year in hospital, and did not compete from 2019 to mid-2023. And yet here he is earning a UFC deal. I mean, what a wild story about this guy.
Yeah, I had followed him closely in 2020, right around the time of the pandemic. And I was sending a message to his manager, how close is he? He was one of the top prospects in Canada at the time. Probably, I guess, if he's 31 now, would have been 25. He was on a roll. He was beating everybody and was on the cusp of the promotion. Then suddenly I saw on Instagram, he posted, and I had talked to Jamie a couple times. I'm like, oh, man, you're really close. It's been cool watching your fights. But I saw him post on Instagram that he was retiring because he was in the hospital and on basically on his deathbed. And yeah, like you mentioned, he had some sort of encephalitis, blood disease, was put into a medically induced coma, and really on the brink of death, and managed to fight through it And I don't think he ever thought he was going to fight again. And I know the doctors certainly didn't think he was ever going to fight again, or that he might not even be able to use his legs again. Like really in bad shape. Ends up fighting his way back. I was at his first fight back after he returned. It was at BFL. There happened to be a UFC event in town that week, and I was at his event, and it was just a real celebration for him when he got that win. He said it wasn't his best performance, but I don't think that really matters when you think about what he had to overcome to get there. And since then, he's only lost one fight, and it was to UFC veteran Diego Brandao, a former Ultimate Fighter winner. When he lost that fight, I think a lot of people had doubts as to whether or not he'd make it back or ever get a shot in the UFC, but has not lost a fight since. They needed somebody to fight John Giannis on this card. From what I understand, Giannis was supposed to fight somebody different. That fight was never really announced, but that fighter unfortunately had to pull out due to injury. They needed a bantamweight on short notice. Siraj's been fighting at 145 pounds, so now he has to get all the way back down to 135. He told me yesterday he was at 145, so he has to cut about 9 pounds between yesterday and Friday, which isn't that big of a deal. Sounds like a lot, but that's pretty typical for a fighter during fight week. I think the big question would be how much did he have to cut in order to get down to 145 in order to cut these next 10 pounds. But he's fought at bantamweight before. He knew that when he got to the UFC, that was going to be his optimal division. So that's going to be a tough part of this week for him. But he's overcome so much. I think cutting 9 pounds for him, probably not as tall of an order as what he had to overcome to get here.
Well, exactly. I mean, a couple of these quotes, he said, "It made me grateful for every day I get to be alive. MMA is a crazy journey, but there's no journey like what I went through. And that there's nothing in that cage I can see that's darker than what I went through. So I feel very prepared to fight at this level." I think he's kicking the card off with an early one, but I think the fans are going to be behind it. For folks that haven't been to a UFC event before, obviously you've got the main events, but this is there are a ton of fights on this card. Just give people an idea, if they haven't been to a UFC event before, what awaits them, starting right with the first fight, I think at 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll say this. If you were saving up money for Jets playoff tickets, I'm sorry for your loss. But at the same time, if you have some money in the bank and you want to experience things that might not come back to Winnipeg for another 10 years, I think that going to a UFC event is a really unique experience, because watching it, I actually think it's more of a TV sport. But when you're there and you're live and you're feeding off the energy of the crowd, that's something you just can't replicate from watching the broadcast. And I think that if you have the opportunity to come out on Saturday and you want to see something a little bit different and experience something that is becoming one of the bigger sports in the world right now. I'm not sure when the next opportunity to do that will be in Winnipeg. I would urge you to get tickets and check this one out, because you're gonna have, with so many Canadians on the card, everybody, even if you don't watch the UFC, you're gonna know who to cheer for the most part in most fights. And every UFC card has usually at least one crazy moment, as Dana White calls them, like holy S moments. I'm not sure if I'm able to swear on your show, but he says that that's what the UFC wants to give fans when they're in the building. We had several of those last week in Miami. I expect that we're going to see a couple of those in Winnipeg on Saturday, and you'll be able to tell people you were in attendance to see such and such do this. I would urge you to go.
That heavyweight fight on the weekend, I wasn't familiar with either of those dudes, but my God, I mean, that it would probably be hard to have a much more exciting all-out scrap between big men like we just saw.
Yeah, that's one of the 3 best heavyweight fights in UFC history. It was basically like watching a hockey fight between 2 gigantic guys who were just putting it on each other for 15 minutes with a little bit of wrestling. Not that much wrestling, but a little bit of wrestling tied in. Just a crazy fight. That was amazing to experience on Saturday.
Hey, before we go, the UFC has this White House card coming up. Are you going to be there? Will press credentials work a little differently for something that is on the grounds of the United States government? I mean, no. What's that going to be like?
I will be going, but from what I understand, media is going to be at like a media center, an offsite media center. We won't be at the White House covering it, which is very different from what we've seen in the past. Obviously, a very different circumstance from what we've seen in the past because they've never had a fight on the grounds of the White House before. But yeah, I'll be down there. We'll be covering that for a full week. And I'm looking forward to it because it's one of those cool one-of-one experiences that, you can kind of tell your kids that you were at.
Well, it'll feel like a one-on-one experience, I think, for a lot of fight fans. They get a chance to see the stars of the UFC, tons of Canadian talent, and Canada's own Mike Murat, who spent a lot of time here in Winnipeg in that building watching his brother play hockey, go off in the main event. Aaron, of course, you're here all week. Fill people in on the coverage and what they can find out at Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca, that you're cranking out from here ahead of the big night at Canada Life Centre.
Yeah, I did about 8 interviews yesterday. Those will be up on our website. I think that probably some of them already are. Feel free to check those out if you want to get familiar with a lot of the different fighters on this card. I'll be at weigh-ins on Friday. If you want to go and see the ceremonial weigh-ins, tickets are free. It's Friday afternoon at the Canada Life Centre. And then on Saturday is the event itself. So busy day tomorrow. Today, I'm just kind of enjoying the city. Looking forward to taking it all in. The UFC, unfortunately, are a week early. I looked at what the forecast is next week. And you're finally getting spring weather here in Winnipeg. But yesterday was a bit of a sneak preview. Now we're back into, I think this morning I woke up and said, feels like minus 15. And I was like, oh, man, that's pretty stark reality.
Well, thank God we are here in Winnipeg, because to the north and to the west of us, Calgary, I think, is getting 25 centimeters today. This storm's going to come. It could be freezing rain and things like that, but it won't be quite as bad as it is elsewhere. But yeah, I'm glad you were here Wednesday just to see it's not always like this. But we're going to be inside on Saturday, and the stars of the UFC will be inside the octagon, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens at the UFC Fight Night card here in Winnipeg. Aaron Bronsteter, thanks so much for doing this. Folks, check out his work at sportsnet.ca and, of course, on Sportsnet Television. We'll see you around the ring on Saturday night, AB. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure, Hustler.
Right on. Who's going to the fights tonight? Let us know in chat if you're going to be there. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've been to a couple UFC events before. Really fun. But this one will be great. I want to get behind Mike Murat, our Canadian fighters. Looking forward to that. Speaking of which, we will get to the cool bet lines in a minute. I have put something together for the Jets' final game tonight, which includes Kyle Connor getting his 40th goal in the exclusive. So we'll tell you about that. But don't forget, if you do want to go to the event on Saturday night, you have until later on today and tomorrow morning to send in your bet slips at CoolBet to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com for entries into the draw. We'll announce the winner on tomorrow's show of Winnipeg Sports Talk. I cannot wait to get out to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Now, I'm not happy that my May is all of a sudden wide open. A little bit more than it would be if we were hoping for a big, long playoff run. But going to be getting out there at the early part of the season. They are looking forward to a great year, though, coming back after a tough one last year where guests had to leave for the better part of about a month and a half. But they're ready to rock, and they will be doing so coming up next month, booking well into the summer. Now, over 80% for the season. If you are thinking about a world-class fly-in fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. And as incredible as the fishing is, the hospitality and everything else that makes the Aikens experience what it is even better. Get to aikenslake.com for more information and availability on the upcoming season. I do want to quickly hit the Breezy Bend leaderboard. Of course, golf season is not officially here, certainly not with this weather that we're dealing with in Manitoba today, but it will be soon. If you're looking for a great spot for a long-term home for you and your family at Winnipeg's top private courses, check out Breezy Bend. I'll be there swinging by the end of the month. breezybend.ca for more information on membership. And, of course, you can always call our pal Corey Johnson, GM of the Year in Manitoba Golf, 895-7205. Ludwig Oberg, 8 under par at the RBC Heritage today. And finally, one of my picks looking good. Victor Hovland, 7 under par for his first round. Looking at the Canadians in the field, Nick Taylor is 2 under. Corey Connors is 2 under. And our guy, Sudarshan Yelamaraju, He is 2 over right now. Unfortunately, tripled his first hole, came back with a birdie. He's looking to get back into it. We're all pulling for Sudarshan on the PGA Tour. All right, we'll get to the lines for tonight's game and our little exclusive in a minute. But right now, let's welcome in Erik Swar from the MJHL to set up an awesome Turnbull Cup series that gets underway Friday between Verdun and Niverville. There will be a first-time champion in the MJHL. It is a heavyweight matchup in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League's Turnbull Cup final, getting started on Friday night in Niverville. Let's welcome in Erik Swar from the MJHL to tee up the final. Erik, great to have you back on the program. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Doing well. Just kind of putting the final bow on things here for tomorrow night, and yeah, we're really looking forward to getting going.
Hey, been a great season. I don't think you could have a better final matchup. 2 franchises that had incredible seasons, both going for their first Turnbull Cup championship. That being said, that's a good thing because the bar was set pretty high for excitement last year in a Turnbull Cup final that went all the way to Game 7 triple overtime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, last year was pretty epic. You can't script it any better than that. I mean, even in double overtime of that game, there was a player injury where an ambulance had to be called, and so the game was delayed, and he ended up being okay. He had a concussion, but yeah, for it to end in triple overtime, I think the game ended around 12:15 a.m. So it was a long night, a long ride back home to Winnipeg. But yeah, no, we're really looking forward to this matchup. You know, both teams looking for their first Turnbull Cup in franchise history. I mean, for Verdun, they came from the Winnipeg Saints organization where they had a few Turnbull Cup champions, obviously. But for Verdun, yeah, they're looking for their first one in Verdun. And for the Nighthawks, I mean, it's only year 4 for them, and for them to be in the Turnbull Cup final here, I know they put a lot of hard work and dedication into getting to this point. And, you know, hats off to them, a newer organization in the league, obviously, that does a great job of developing players and moving them on to the next level. And now for them to have success and be in the Turnbull Cup final, definitely hats off to that organization.
Well, I mean, listen, I remember, you know, on WST in our early days talking about an expansion team, a new team in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League going to Niverville. I mean, what a job that management group, coaching staff, team have done. This team, 51-6-1 in a 58-game season. A pretty incredible run through the regular season, and they've now made it to the cusp of their first championship. But tell us a little bit about the Niverville Nighthawks and the season that they've had, as well as their path to the final.
Yeah, you know what? It's been an incredible season for them. Obviously, a 58-game schedule, you get 51 wins. I mean, from wire to wire, they were certainly the most consistent and the best night in and night out in the MJ. And, you know, they're led by, you know, a couple of guys who have kind of been there since their inception. I mean, a guy like Adam Vigfusson and Merrick Bowles come to mind when I think about their lineup. And now they're kind of the big dogs there after, you know, it's funny, you see them in their first year and they're these young up and comers, and then to see them now where they've gotten the team to, and it's great to see, you know, that they have extremely well goaltending. It seems like since they've been in the league, their goaltender, Austin Dubinsky, he was the Ed Belfour top goaltender this year in the MJHL. And then they're led, you know, by head coach Dwight Hurst, who came in, you know, a few seasons ago, kind of as an interim guy. And I think he got hired, you know, full-time after his little stint there. But he's just done an excellent job. They defend well. They're super hard to play against. And, you know, Verdun's going to have their hands full here. But, you know, in saying that, on the other side, Verdun, an incredibly well-ran franchise. Tyson Ramsey, their head coach and GM, you know, a former player in the league. He's done an excellent job there as well. And, you know, they do a really good job of developing their young talent and getting them into the lineup and moving them on to the next level as well. So, you know, you have two teams that have super kind of offensive weapons, and then they're both really good at defending as well. So just two heavyweights here going head to head here in the Turnbull Cup final, and we can't be more excited about it.
Well, and I imagine the fans in both Verdun and Neepawa are ready to go. I mean, you can tell us out. I mean, I've kind of been, you know, paying attention. The crowds for these playoff games have been phenomenal, not just in Verdun and Niverville as well. I had some friends that rode in Steinbach for the Pistons run, disappointed that they didn't win. But there's a lot of momentum, and I couldn't imagine it being more so than in Verdun and Neepawa, with game one already sold out, with both of these teams feeling like they are this close to winning their first championship.
Yeah, just talking to the guys in Niverville here this morning, I think they had like 20 standing tickets left, so they'll be at capacity for Friday night. And honestly, it's been a madhouse in Niverville for their home games. It's some tight quarters there. I think it holds just over 1,000. And so it just turns into, a madhouse when they're winning at home, and the fans have just really bought in there. And across the board, honestly, we've had attendance averages north of 1,200 fans per game here in the league playoffs here, and across our social media platforms as well. We've put a huge emphasis on promoting these playoffs and showcasing these atmospheres around the province. And just on our Instagram alone, we've had almost 6 million views in the last 30 days of the playoffs. So, the league's buzzing. I'd say every town across the MJ is buzzing, and yeah, we're just really looking forward to it.
I listen, if folks have not been to MJHL hockey or playoff hockey, and you happen to be in and around, or just want to make the drive to take in what will be incredible atmospheres if you can get your hands on tickets, highly recommend it. The series is going to be starting off Friday night in Niverville. They go to Verdun. It's interesting. It's not 2-2, 1-1-1. I mean, it's basically back and forth, which is a great way to do the series, Eric. I mean, it's tough to get big-time momentum at home ice. Every time you play at home, you got to follow it up on the road. And I imagine this weekend, starting off in Niverville Friday night, and then game 2 in Verdun, not only will be two teams feeling themselves out and trying to get off to a great start in this massive series, but also an opportunity for both fan bases to get behind their team and try and will them to victory.
Yeah, 100%. And, both fan bases have traveled really well throughout the playoffs. I know both of them will have fan buses going to each game for game 1 and game 2. And yeah, just to hear the buzz of each town and, how well ticket sales are going. And, for both of these teams, for being, I guess, newer franchises, so to speak. I mean, Verdun's been there since 2012 when they moved from Winnipeg, and Niverville being in year 4. To see the community support, the corporate support, just the towns have completely gotten behind these teams, and, we can't ask for more. And so, when it comes to the fans and the excitement and, people bickering on social media and people, bickering at each other in person, it's just shaping up to be a great final. And, one of these two teams is going to win their first in franchise history. And this is going to be the 6th season in a row where we're going to have a different champion.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, as a longtime follower of the league, the energy that Verdun brought in, obviously what Niverville has done has been phenomenal. What the people in Steinbach have done with that new rink and the Pistons. And listen, it's a tip of the cap to Verdun that they are in this spot that they are, because they had to go in and beat a Steinbach team that was 47-9-2, not too far behind Niverville. And I'm sure that'll be a big boost for them going up against the top team in the league. But you think about Winkler, I mean, the season that Weiwei had, I mean, the success consistently year over year in Dauphin, in Portage. I mean, it'd be nice to see the city teams do a little bit better, but right now, these well-supported rural teams have really been building something, and certainly on the ice, in the standings, without one team just dominating and killing everyone else. That's probably exactly what you want to see from the league's perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the parity amongst kind of the top 8 teams in the league this year has been extraordinary. I mean, Niverville, they had to go through Winkler and Weiwei. Those are two great teams as well. And, a tip of the hat to, I'll mention Weiwei Sikapa. They made it past the first round for the first time in their franchise history this year. And that community gets out and supports that team unbelievably well. I mean, I actually used to work there, so I got to give them a little bit of a shout out. And, for them to get through there and then for Verdun, like you say, to get through Nipois and then to get through Steinbach, it definitely wasn't an easy series for Verdun. They came out guns blazing and kind of shocked Steinbach a little bit, I think. And people, a lot of people say that the East is kind of stronger than the West, but every year, I mean, you see it. Here we have, an East versus West matchup. Last season, we had a West versus West matchup, and the year prior, it was East versus East in the final. So really, it all depends on the season and what have you. But the support just throughout the rural teams in our league is incredible, and you see the success happening because of it.
Yeah, well, listen, credit to you guys for the way you do the playoffs as well with the reseeding after the first round. Makes too much sense. I feel another league I know of might be able to tweak that playoff format to make things a little bit more fair. Friday night, Niverville's going to be packed. Sunday night, Verdun will be rocking. The rest of the series goes basically every second day throughout the next couple weeks with the potential Game 7 on, it would be Wednesday, the 29th of April, but who knows? I mean, best case scenario, we get another classic like last year. I mean, it is Game 7 of championship finals speak for themselves, but you get into a little overtime, some legendary stuff. And I got to tell you, the atmosphere for this series with the excitement in both of these spots, I think is going to be just amazing for the MJHL. Erik, you mentioned the socials and where you guys are getting out information. I mean, you can always go to mjhlhockey.ca for information on the league, but let people know Instagram, X, like where they can follow, even if they're not able to make out to the games, to keep on top of the championship of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League starting this weekend.
Yeah, Instagram and X, you can get at us at MJHL Hockey. And you know what? We've put a big focus on bringing people kind of behind the scenes this year in the playoffs. Everything. You can literally follow the game along. We've had some quality videographers come out and, shoot some good content for us. And our team behind the scenes have done a great job just showcasing the league and what we're all about. I mean, at the end of the day, I think sometimes, we get forgotten about just because we are out in a ton of rural communities in Manitoba. But like you said, if you have a chance to come out and check out one of the games in the final, it's must-watch hockey. And one of these teams is going to have the opportunity, to move on to the Centennial Cup in Summerside PEI when it comes to, I think it's May 7th to the 17th. So they'll have a chance to compete for the national championship. And I think, whoever wins this series will be a great representative of the MJ.
Yeah, just speaking of that, this isn't it for the winner. I mean, it's a huge opportunity moving forward. What is the path? Do they automatically go? They don't do the Anavet anymore, like between Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or how does all that work?
Yeah, so they got rid of the Anavet post-COVID and just decided that each winner of each league across the CJHL would get an automatic, spot in the Centennial Cup along with the host, obviously. So yeah, the Summerside Western Capitals from the Maritime Hockey League are the hosts this May, and I've had the opportunity to be at, I think 4 of the last 5, and it's an incredible event. Hockey Canada really rolls out the red carpet for these guys, and the hockey is incredible. And the players that I've seen come through the last 4 years have been amazing. There's guys that are, now playing in the NHL that I've seen at these events. One of the guys that comes to mind, a guy, Aiden Fink, he was on the Brooks Bandits back in the Estevan Centennial Cup, and he just signed with the Preds. So it's really cool to see the high-end talent, and I think TSN will have the final on again for the Centennial Cup again. And it's great. Craig Button always comes, and Brian Mudrick, and they do a great job of calling the game. So it's a really high-end event, and something that we look forward to each year, seeing our MJ representative do really well at.
Well, listen, to our friends out in the Niverville area and to the Verdun area, enjoy the what should be an amazing 7-game series. Good luck to both the teams. And you know what? We will make a point of, when the series is over, whether it's the coach or one of the stars, we'll get some of the people on from the winning team on WST as they head out to the Maritimes to represent the MJHL in the championship, in the Centennial Cup. But in the meantime, let's get ready for 7 awesome games in the MJHL final beginning tomorrow in Verdun. More information on all the socials. Make sure to give them a follow at MJHL Hockey, and the website for scheduling and all that for the final series for the Turnbull Cup, mjhlhockey.ca. Erik, good luck to you, the league, both teams. Thanks for jumping on, and may we see another classic series and an incredible first championship for one of these two franchises.
Yeah, Hustler, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And here we go, MJ.
All right, appreciate Erik jumping on. Good luck to both squads. I was actually just checking out the MJ's Instagram feed. Some really good content, great video, highlights from the games. Definitely would suggest you give him a follow at MJHL Hockey. All right, to finish up the show today, let's get to the cool bet lines. Final reminder, any of you cool bettors out there, if you're making playoff bets, betting this game tonight, jumping on my exclusive, or especially betting for fight night on Saturday, make sure you take a screen cap, send those in to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. For every $10, you'll get a ballot. If it's a bet for UFC on Saturday, you'll get 2 ballots for every $10. And we will announce the winner on tomorrow's show and send somebody to see the Octagon on Friday night. Tonight, Remis, there is still much to be decided because the Pacific Division has 3 games that actually matter tonight. Kings in Calgary, Vancouver in Edmonton, and the Predators are in Nashville. The Ducks are in Nashville to take on the Predators.
A lot of the other playoff matchups already decided, but you're telling me that there's a chance here, Huss, that we could possibly have for the 5th year in a row? What a great playoff format for another Kings Oilers. And could the Kings finally get the Oilers number? They should have had last year's series, but an ill-timed challenge proved to be the
worst challenge.
It was the worst challenge. It was terrible. It was not good at the time. Very clearly wasn't going to get overturned and change the momentum.
He never recovered. He got fired earlier this year.
Crazy. And the Kings has, in a playoff spot, minus 20 goal differential. The Ducks also in a playoff spot, minus 16 goal differential on the season. So I imagine we'll be seeing Oilers Knights round 2 eventually. We'll see, though.
Probably tough for teams like the Washington Capitals, who finished with 95 points and plus 19 goal differential, to see what's happened in the rest of the rest.
Yeah.
Detroit. Well, Detroit was always sort of, I think, a bit of a paper tiger. They finished minus 17. Blue Jackets ended up 0 even for the season. So, but anyways, these games tonight, the games that matter, you have the Kings in Calgary to take on the Flames. LA's minus 154. Edmonton needs to win to get second place. Edmonton's minus 323. I'll be taking them on the puck line tonight. Not the 2.5 line, just the 1.5 line. And then the Ducks are in Nashville, and the Ducks are favored. They're the team that has something to play for. But that's been the case for the last 10, 15 games. Anaheim minus 125, Nashville plus 106. So if you want to do the death taxes and Kings versus Oilers in the first round parlay, you want Edmonton, I'm going to do it with the money line. Kings money line and Predators money line. And that will give us Anaheim, Colorado, Utah, Vegas. Utah, Vegas is set. And Edmonton and the Kings in the first round. Blues are in Utah. Nothing game for either team. Blues minus 130. Utah rest a bunch of guys before the Vegas series. We also have the Kraken and Avalanche. Colorado minus 192. Kraken plus 162. Even with a win and a Jet loss, the Kraken cannot catch Winnipeg, so they'll be in the 6th hole going into the draft lottery. As far as the Jets-Sharks game goes tonight, though, over at Coolbet, San Jose plus 135, Jets minus 159. But the key numbers tonight, Kyle Connor, plus 135 to score. Needs 1 for 40. I think they'll be giving it to him early and often. And I think he'll be shooting the puck a lot unless he scores right off the bat. Over 3.5 shots for Kyle Connor is minus 102. And as I said, plus 135. So if you go to the exclusives, we're going to do this one more time this year. Kyle Connor to score. Kyle Connor to record 4 or more shots on goal. And Jets to win. Guys gave us a nice little boost up to plus 425. As I said, the dream scenario, Remo, for tonight is the Jets winning in overtime on a Kyle Connor overtime goal, 40th of the year. And I am the lucky fan that wins a Jet dog at every single game next year.
You're not the guitar. You want the Jet dog at every game. Is it Moose games too?
Probably. No, they don't even do the Jet dogs at Moose games.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's called a Jet dog, not a Moose dog. You're right. So
Jets dogs for a year. So every game I show up with my season,
imagine
another Jet dog awaits me. We had a couple good ones this year. The Reuben dog. I've been thinking about that one ever since we ate one at that last WST game. I think that was at the end of February. Maybe the Montreal game.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. That Reuben dog. I have been think about it every time I'm there. It was so good. We split it. What a great time.
Maybe I'll have to get one tonight. They got the new one is the cheesy bacon queso.
They got to switch it up. Yeah, they got to have different kinds. Keeps you coming back, Huss. And
they do. They've got. I mean, I'm very much partial just to the regular ones with the fried onions. I'm fine with that, but they are good. Anyways, that's what's up. I guess the Jays have already started, so we've missed the Jays game for today. Although I don't see it.
I think they won, or sorry, they lost to the Brewers.
It's already over?
It's what is it, Thursday? I was gonna say getaway day, but they lost 2-1 to the Brewers.
Again? Back-to-back 2-1 losses? Ouch.
And yeah, they are 7-11. I mean, they're only 3.5 games out, but mind you talk about run differential, minus 25 run differential. I mean, the back-to-back 2-1 losses doesn't hurt that much in the run differential column. We got to come up with some wins here. As Tampa 10-7. It is early. There's a lot of season to go, Huss, but you want to get off to a good start.
Just before we go, so anyways, that exclusive plus 425, Jets to win, Connor to score, Connor over 4 or more shots, plus 425 set up there for you. We also in the exclusives have what Patty and I came up with. That is the ride with Huss and Patty for the first round of the playoffs. Pittsburgh to beat Philly. Ottawa is our upset. Ottawa to beat the Canes. And the Buffalo Sabres to beat Boston. That's boosted from plus 539 to plus 617. But just before we wrap, here's the latest. We'll see if we've had any movement in the NHL playoff series. Boston and Buffalo, still Buffalo minus 175, Boston plus 144. The Ottawa number has moved a bit. There's been some action on Ottawa. Ottawa's gone from plus 150 to plus 145. Canes are plus or minus 175. Stars and Wild still minus 116 and minus 104. That number will change if it comes out that Rupi Hintz and Miro Heiskanen aren't able to go for game 1. I think there's some value on Minnesota right now, to be honest. Pittsburgh, Philly. Pittsburgh still minus 152. Philly plus 125. Lightning and Habs. Montreal plus 200. Tampa minus 250. And the new series, Vegas Golden Knights and Utah Mammoth. I think Utah's being slept on a little bit. I mean, Vegas minus 189. I get it, they're the favorites, but I thought this would be a shorter number on Vegas. I was thinking maybe like minus 160. Utah plus 154. I can wrap my head around that one. And then, of course, the draft picks right now. First overall pick, Gavin McKenna, minus 270. Any other player, plus 200. Soon we'll have draft lottery odds, so we'll be able to get to that. But again, get over to the exclusives. One more time for Jets season. You'll see the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay. Click on that. And again, any bets you're making, get in for the draw. Screen cap them. Email them. Contest at winnipegsportstalk.com. Good luck to you all. And we'll announce those tomorrow. We got to get out to get this podcast up before the game. Thanks to Erik Swar, who joined us. Great stuff with Murat and Connor Rabchak, and of course, Aaron Bronsteter. It is locker cleanout day tomorrow for the players, so join us. We will have plenty from Canada Life Center. Hopefully going to catch up with Kevin Sawyer as well for a few minutes. Connor will be downtown. We'll have him join us. And it's Friday. You know what else that means. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Enjoy game number 82 and Fan Appreciation Game, folks. And join us tomorrow for a big Friday edition to wrap up the year and hear from the Winnipeg Jets on the way out of town on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. See you tomorrow.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.